Welcome to the Life Rocks podcast. In this podcast, we explore how nature, science, education, and culture can benefit all children and future generations. This is a show for educators, parents, mentors, and anyone interested in making the lives of our children, families, and communities better. So sit back, take a breath, and enjoy the show. And now for your host, Asher Cloran.
Hello, everybody. This is the Life Rocks podcast. I'm your host, Asher Cloran, and today I'm very excited to have Daniel Ebbett along with me for a great chat. He is the CEO and founder of Australian-based company Block Blue Light. Daniel has spent the last 9 years heavily researching all aspects of how light impacts our health after personally going through a number of years of suffering with chronic insomnia and migraines. He went about finding solutions to resolve his declining health. Daniel has now developed a number of different products based upon all of his research and helps people live in today's modern world while mitigating the harmful effects of modern lighting can have on our health. I think Daniel's work is super important. I've been following along with his company pretty much since the beginning, I think, maybe about 9 years ago. Changing my own light habits has had an amazing impact on my health. It's something I write about in connecting children to nature. I've mentioned articles that Daniel's written from his website, Block Blue Light, in here. So I've kind of been following along with what Daniel's been up to tangentially without being in contact for quite a while, until I reached out to him the other day and I thought it's about time that Life Rocks partners up with Block Blue Light and we get Daniel on the podcast, because it can be a strange topic for people to wrap their head around. Let's be honest, we grow up in modern lighting, it's all around us, but Daniel is here today to help us unpack the subject. So welcome, Daniel. Thanks for coming along.
Thanks, Asher. Yeah, nice to be here. Always keen to jump on and share my words of wisdom in the area of all things blue light.
Absolutely, yeah, it's awesome, and I think I'd like to jump into just how you feel that it can escape so many people's awareness that there's that the light that we're literally living under day in, day out is negatively impacting us. It's, ruining our nervous system, it ruins our sleep, it does all these negative things. Why does it escape the main sort of awareness of most people?
I would say what comes to mind is it's been heavily normalized in society, and they just people aren't open to making that connection. It seems a bit too far-fetched for people. It's like, oh no, but lights in your house, how could they possibly have any impact on my health, right? Like, yeah. And it's just, I think the rapid development and technology, people are just so fixated on more development, faster, brighter, bigger screens and all that. They're not really thinking about the actual, not only the impact in terms of just like the health impact from the light, but like the overall impact to your mental health, to everything from these. And I think people are more addicted to that, to the dopamine hit they're getting from the devices, to not even kind of consider what the other impacts to their health are from it.
Yeah, I think you're spot on there, and I think we're going to go a bit into that today, just the development of technology and this kind of technological train that society's on, and we're just pulled into it, swept up in the momentum of it all. Tell us a little bit about your story. I know you've probably been asked this question a million times, but it's a great story because this is, the sort of story that all of us go on when we find health and whatnot. So how'd you get into this?
So how I got into this was out of a necessity, right? So it's a bit of a long history, but where it really starts is out of university, or just on the tail end of being at university, I really got quite passionate about health and wellness and just generally looking after myself. Kind of after spending like 4 years of destroying my body and feeling like shit, from just like obviously living a student lifestyle, was just like decided there was just a point, and I was like, you know what, I'm really going to start to try and optimize my health and just so I can perform better, like you know, coming into a career, and I've spent all this time and effort studying. And so the first thing I really started doing was just exercising. So I got into the gym and then got into that quite seriously. I really got into it and just really started loving it. So I was actually competing in competitive powerlifting.
Nice.
And then I was over so I sort of left university, came over to Australia, and I was actually competing at essentially the elite national level.
Amazing.
So really in that point, really quite passionate just about looking after my body and trying to perform optimally,
getting the most out of your body.
Yeah. And then at the same time that was going on, I'm just entering into the workforce.
Yep.
So I landed a job in corporate IT as an intern, and so essentially was on screens a lot. So and working in a typical corporate office, so a lot of fluorescent lighting, a lot of screens, and not only during the day, but as an IT intern, you get lumped with all the kind of out of hours work as well. So I'd be quite regularly jumping on the screens at 11 o'clock at night through to say 1 in the morning, doing kind of system changes and updates. And it didn't take long. It was about, within the space of a couple of months, I was sort of like, just started to notice some negative health impacts dropping in, which I'd never seen before. So insomnia started to creep in, bit of eye strain and headaches. And initially I kind of just brushed it off and was like, not sure what this is. And ultimately the fact that I was training, putting my body through quite significant, like strenuous training that
powerlifting's hardcore, but it takes a lot of rest.
Yeah, well, the recovery is the key, right? And I guess I was a little bit uneducated then myself as well, not really understanding recovery in the body, young and a bit stupid, and was just like, I'll push through it, So regardless of what my sleep did, I continued to push heavy in the gym. And but I started to notice certainly my strength numbers starting to drop off, and this really started to it was kind of a bit of a vicious cycle that just got worse and worse. And so initially I did what most people would do, is reach out or go to your GP and because they just assume they can help, what you can do in terms of sleep. And but the unfortunate thing is and which I've learned a lot about now is your standard healthcare from a GP is it's a very reactive kind of not root cause approach to things.
I'm gonna take a guess here. So they gave you a pill,
a whole concoction,
a whole bunch of pills.
Yeah. So I even had things from antipsychotics to antidepressants to you name it, like. And I did keep going back, and they're like, "Oh, we'll try this and try that," and it just ultimately made things a hell of a lot worse. It made my symptoms worse, my mood worse. I didn't even sleep better after all that. And so then I eventually got kind of told, like, I'm like, what do I do? And they're like, well, I think it's kind of like, they're kind of like even suggested it was just in my head that was causing the issue. That's their last thing. Yeah. So ultimately, like, what I like to say is I fired my GP. I was like, I've had enough of this. This is like not working. Like, ultimately, what's the definition of sanity? Just keep doing the same thing and expecting a different result, right? So I was like, this is not going to fix itself. And clearly you guys don't know what you're doing. So by this stage, I was out of the gym. I wasn't training anymore. Things were too, like, I guess there's a bit of a fall-on effect. Once your sleep has deteriorated for long enough, hormonal systems break down, health systems break down in the body, and so then there's a point where, like,
any amount of training or doing stuff that's hard is going to break you down further.
Yeah. and I was just trying to piece it together so I could still maintain this new job I had started. So
Fair enough.
but I have a very analytical and problem-solving mind, right? So I was sort of like, well, let's apply this to my health and work out what's going on. And so I was kind of like, let's just take a step back and stop trying to like band-aid the problem here and work out the root cause. So and ultimately what I led to start with was like, well, what's changed? What from where I was to where I am, what's ultimately changed in my life? And it was like, well, the ultimate thing that's changed is like I'm now working in an office and I'm on these screens and lights and stuff. So I kind of was like, maybe I should just like start looking into this.
And that wasn't like the same for you at uni, because doing an IT course at uni, you'd be a lot of screens, but not as much.
Yeah, not as much. But yeah, you're going into like lectures and stuff. You're spending a lot of time at home, and just like I don't know. I had a room with like lots of natural light. I think we had like incandescent lighting in our homes. It wasn't all the LED, because this is quite we're 8-9 years ago, 10 years ago. So it's sort of like that. LED and fluorescent lighting was really only in commercial. It wasn't in the residential space yet. Computer screens weren't big, and I think I had one of those old CRT monitors as my home computer and stuff. So but yeah, like so I kind of was like, well, maybe I don't know. I was like, it's real far-fetched, but let's just start kind of digging down this rabbit hole of going, well, I'm on screens a lot, I'm inside a lot, and through my just trawling the internet, I discovered a neurosurgeon in the US called Dr. Jack Cruz. And I essentially went down a huge rabbit hole of his work.
Yep.
And he's a big proponent of light, and ultimately light governing the most significant governor of biological processes in the body. So he rubbishes anyone that talks about diet or anything like that. He's all about light, EMFs, and like cold exposure, and just all these effects on the body. So so I kind of just on a huge learning curve of what his work is very hard to digest. He doesn't like break it down in layman's terms, so it can be pretty heavy to even understand a lot of his stuff. But ultimately, the takeaways I got was that artificial light, particularly blue light, does have a significant biological impact on our bodies, our brains, our health, and ultimately we're living in a light toxic world, and it's having significant health impacts on people. So that was like, oh shit, okay, hold on a minute, maybe there's something here. Let's kind of run an experiment. And so I sort of wanted to try and mitigate as much blue light as I could, because essentially what I learned was most of the lighting I was being exposed to during the day was very, very high levels of artificial blue light, well beyond what they should be from nature. So I was like, how can I bring them down, particularly at night, to see if I can resolve the insomnia? And so I found a pair of safety glasses that would block 99% of blue light. They didn't exist in Australia. I had to import them from the US. And I was like, okay, let's give this a try. So I put them on every night. Like, flatmates were like looking at that. I was honestly, they thought I was crazy. Like, they're like these big goggles on that I'll just walk around the house and like it was very, very quick to find out that had one of the most significant impacts that anything over the last 2 years had to improve it. So I was like, okay, and there's definitely something here. So just continued to go down that path for quite a while of wearing them, and just over time, within 6 months, it was completely reversed. Health was reversed, and it's kind of almost back to where I was. So that to me was like, holy shit, like, why is no one talking about this? Why does no one know about this? Like, there must be other people out there that like have been through what I'm going through, but they never got past leaving the GP stage and just continuing to like try and band-aid the solution. So I kind of was like, shit, I've got to do something about this. And literally all I did is started importing those glasses from the US. It was like, that was step one. I was like, let's slap up a website, put these glasses on there, and here we are, like 8 years later.
Great. Well, I'm glad that you went through that journey, because you've you've provided products basically to all the people who start thinking about that, and you were the first Aussie website, as far as I was aware at the time, that, you know, the big chunky safety goggles, and you know, I've been through a fair few pairs of those in my time. Because you know, not saying they wear out quick or anything. I'm just, you know, if you wear something every day, and I'm a pretty active guy, and you know, lived in the bush and stuff, so it was not always you know, putting them back in the case and stuff. But yeah, so I've definitely been through a bunch of them, and then my friend actually started a little company where he was doping the lenses himself. So he'd buy glasses in from wherever, and would dope them with the dye, but he got bored of it and whatnot. So now I'm back with your company. Stop supporting my mate, but you've got a whole range of products now. It's not just the glasses. It's different shades of glasses for different times of day. There's like the light panels I can see behind you, infrared light therapy, which is, you know, a whole other way of healing with light. You've got clip-on book lights for reading at night. You've got motion sensor lights for in your hallway, which we've got in our pad at home. Light, you know, screw-in light bulbs and bayonet style light bulbs for different times a day. And so I'm outfitting a room at the moment at my parents' place with that stuff. So yeah, you've really expanded this whole range for people, and I just think that this, you know, awareness is so important. You're obviously someone who's into technology, probably, you know, has had a career in technology, and now has a business that's highly centered around the use of technology to get what it is that you want out there done. And here we are today, you know, staring at a laptop whilst the sun's nice and shiny, doing our thing. But you know, I'm just interested to hear from you, as someone who's obviously, you know, had a career and life in technology and everything like that. I see that this next wave of innovation that I see that you're a part of is about balancing the harm and the danger of technology. So we've sort of created all this stuff, wireless stuff, blue lights, you know, machinery, computers, iPods, blah, blah, blah. But we've got to rein it in, yeah, because it's fucking with people's heads. It's, you know, ruining our health and life. And it's these sort of, you know, mitigating factors that you're dealing with, that you're bringing about to us. So where do you see sort of technology heading in the future, and are we just at the beginning of these you know, innovations?
Yeah, it's an interesting question. I think humanity and technology is a long way to come before we kind of, like you said, like rein it in. Like yeah, eventually I think there's like a longer period of cycle here where it's going to be like, okay, like it's going to get really bad, people are going to start to get really sick, and then then it's like there'll be a reaction kind of, you know, problem reaction solution sort of thing. So I think we're still kind of in the problem stage of the cycle, where it's becoming on the awareness of some people, but like if you kind of go to the mainstream of everyone, it's just not even on their radar yet.
No.
But it is improved. Like the problem is like the awareness is starting to improve, but the technology is also accelerating at an extreme rate. Like it's just crazy. It's just ridiculous. It's like but also like there has been like some glimmers of I hope in there. Like for example, like when we started, you know, 8 years ago to now, like you can see some of these manufacturers are at least recognizing there's a problem, so they're trying to put mitigating factors into their tech. You know, like Apple's got like, you know, night shift mode and whatnot, and similar and other things. But I guess it's like they're kind of like agreeing or like admitting there is a problem, but they're kind of just like hiding this feature within the phone that like not many people even know where it is. They're not providing any education around like, hey, you might want to like, or it's not even doing it by default, right? It's like, oh, if you know how to like go into all these settings and do this and this, you can make your phone screen turn red and remove all the blue light and green light, right? But it's like the ultimate hack that only the biohackers know about, because like so and just like from us being in business and like, we obviously have a massive like range of customers now, but I just see when we do a bit of advertising into like, say, just mainstream on Facebook, it's like there's just this resistant people that will just say like, there's no evidence. Show me your peer-reviewed studies, please. I'm like, oh my God, like just jump on PubMed for like 5 minutes and you will
5
see
minutes, man, easy.
But like they just like, because of that, I literally created a page on our site called Science and put it in the main banner, and then we've gone through and literally grabbed all these PubMed studies, got the PDF full text version, paid for some of them, and then we've got like, you can literally open them up, and then we also reference them and we put like some kind of like annotation on them and just like, and then break them down into, okay, this is all the studies around like headaches and eye strain. These are the studies around like flicker and lighting, and people still are like, my optometrist said it's not a thing, and then that's enough for them to be like, it doesn't matter what they're showing. So to answer your question, I think we've got a while bit before it's like everyone's like, shit, we need to restrict, or we need to work out a way to deal with this, to try and live with tech. Like I like to say, like, it's not about like going back to caveman days and shutting off all technology, right? Like technology is like has some amazing benefits that in connecting society and learning and education and all sorts of things. But it's about how can we use technology in a way that we're mindful of it, and we're and mitigating some of the harmful effects of it. And that's kind of ultimately what we're trying to do with everything we create. It's like, well, we're not telling you to shut off all your lights and use fire. We're saying, well, how about you consider like these type of lights here that will still allow you to have, electricity in your home and light it up. It's going to, provide these benefits. And kind of like and another interesting thing is like, because lighting is so big for us now, like we've just been down this whole rabbit hole of just, being with like, obviously light in general and using glasses to mitigate it. But then obviously we had a big aha moment, which was like, how about we actually just not have to filter with glasses? How about we just actually, the light source not have that light in it?
Yeah.
And so that's the rabbit hole we've been down. But we even see like now you've got like manufacturers like Philips and some of the big players, like their approach to it is still wrong. It's still not right. They're like marketing some of their stuff as like, oh yeah, like look at the Philips Hue, it's got all this, and I'm like, yeah, but when I like look at it's just that they've missed they haven't properly researched like health and light.
Right.
They've just and so therefore, like, is it a healthier lighting solution? It might be slightly better, but it's still not optimal.
Okay.
So I think there's still room to go in terms of the education piece for particularly for lighting manufacturers to get on board, but I think they won't get on board unless people demand it. So
that's right. And there's this whole push for energy efficient bulbs, and that's been a whole new wave of terrible lighting for our health. Like it's got a higher flicker rate, it's got cooler temperatures of color in there. So I guess for those who haven't heard about blue light before, like we're very much discussing it as if it's just like preposterous that the public doesn't know about these things, and in a way it is, like, let's be honest. But for those who don't know about the different colors of light and how they affect our hormonal system, can you walk us through like a day of a normal healthy circadian rhythm and how that would be impacted by natural light, and then maybe contrast that with like some of the modern lighting situations that happen and how that can then negatively impact that same circadian rhythm?
Yep, cool. So ultimately the way our bodies are designed is to to work off a circadian rhythm, which is essentially a 24-hour cycle in alignment with the sun. So we're essentially supposed to have our 24-hour cycle in our body is supposed to completely align with the different kind of frequencies of light that we should be exposed to in nature. So the way it should work is like when you wake up in the morning, you should be waking up by the sun or just before sunrise, and then getting that dose of light into the eyes would essentially anchor that circadian rhythm or tell the brain it's daytime.
Yeah.
And so what that actually does is it will increase your wakefulness hormones, cortisol and adrenaline to what should be considered healthy levels. It will also impact our dopamine and serotonin, which are mood regulated neurotransmitters.
Yeah.
So getting that light exposure in the morning should make you feel not so sleepy, should make you start to feel awake, alert, motivated, ready to take on the day.
And that would mean just going outside and just looking at the sky or
in the direction of the sun. Yeah, if around sunrise is really good because there's a lot of red and near infrared wavelengths in that rising sun.
Yep.
So because what happens is the wavelengths emitted from the sun change throughout the day. So in the morning you've got primarily there's blue, but there's a lot of red and near infrared, and that trigger in the eyes kind of does tell the brain, oh yeah, that's morning sun. So it's almost got an anchor point of the 24-hour cycle. And it's good if you're consistently doing that every day, you're consistently training the brain to understand, and it can get into sync because there's a whole cascade of hormonal processes and bodily functions that take place in certain times of the day of the body clock. So like liver, kidneys, all the organs have different times that they do certain processes.
Okay.
So ultimately then what should happen is as the day goes on, the higher the sun gets into the sky, the higher the amount of blue light is in the environment, the higher amounts of UV light are also present as well. So under most of our modern lifestyles is A, we probably don't get outside and see that morning sun, and B, we don't really go outside at all during the day, and most of us will go into an office, an artificially lit office. Yeah. And so the difference with the light from that and what the light you should be getting is, and most artificially lit places are very, very high in blue, just a narrow spectrum of blue. Yeah. But then they're not balanced with the full spectrum of light, so they don't have any of the greens, yellows, orange, and reds in balance.
Okay, so like a fluorescent will just have pretty much blue, no reds or greens, or
fluorescent has a lot of blue and green, and it's the most alien kind of spectrum you've ever seen. It's very bizarre actually, the fluorescence. Okay. But yeah, very just narrow spikes of quite high intense light.
Yep.
And so the issue with that is a lot of the time when you turn that on, so in the morning, your brain instantly thinks that's like midday sun.
Gotcha.
Because it's so high in blue, and blue light is only really, really high around the midday. So instantly your kind of circadian rhythm is already put out of whack, where it's like, oh no, it's not morning, it's like midday already, sort of thing.
Right.
So we're not. There are ways to mitigate that by trying to get outside regularly and try to be taking in, even if it's just a minute or 2 minutes of like that natural light. It helps like that.
Just every hour or something. Just
like a recommendation we have is like, like work colleagues get to take a smoke break. You just tell your boss you're taking a light break to go get some light.
Now, for those of you who don't know, Life Rocks is not just a podcast. It is an education foundation centered around connecting children to the magic of nature through earth sciences. As a self-funded foundation and startup, we are constantly seeking support so that we can continue our great work. So if you feel called to donate to Life Rocks, please head down to the show notes and find the relevant donation link. We accept regular money as well as cryptocurrencies. We greatly appreciate you, our Life Rocks community. Now, back to the show.
But yeah, so that even just in the first half of the day is a big issue in terms of like you're already just like misaligning the circadian rhythm. And it gets worse as the day goes on, and as we get into nights where we really see a problem. But another issue we also have, actually, before we get to that, is so during the daytime, the blue light, so that primarily the blue light and the near infrared light we get from the sun coming into the body, into the eyes, and onto the skin is responsible for the creation or the production of serotonin and dopamine. So both of those are mood regulators, neurotransmitters in the brain. So they're actually produced on the presence of natural full spectrum light. And what serotonin ultimately will end up as is melatonin. So melatonin is your sleep hormone. So serotonin is the precursor to melatonin.
Yeah.
So if you don't get enough natural light during the day, you'll have low serotonin. So ultimately, if you're inside all the time, you're never going outside, your serotonin levels are going to be suboptimal. Yeah. So that will mean your melatonin levels will be suboptimal. That will mean low serotonin is linked to depression. That is pretty much the primary cause of depression is low serotonin. Actually, I shouldn't be saying that because the TGA don't like us saying depression and mental health or any of that. So you might need to see.
Not medical advice. Not medical advice.
Yeah. We've had to get. We even just recently had to go through all our blogs and start removing anything about that. Mm-hmm.
Well, they do run that industry, mental health and serotonin reuptake inhibitors, which is a cumulative effect. Antidepressants, and this is. Yeah, serotonin is a very complex chemical, and you want it in the right amount in certain parts of the body, and you don't want it in the wrong amounts in other certain parts of the body. For instance, like high gut serotonin is related to intestinal trauma and irritated guts, IBS. There's a big overload of serotonin in the gut, but then if you don't have the right ability to regulate it in the brain with all of the balance of the other chemicals, then you can end up feeling pretty shitty or not motivated or whatever. So
and light is a great regulator of that. Natural light coming out in the sun regulates that very, very well. What dysregulates it is our unnatural lifestyles, and then going, we're going to try and come over the top and regulate it with unnatural things.
Exactly.
And that's what and so that's where things blow out, because like you fix this problem here, but then another problem appears here.
It's just a dog chasing its tail. That's what the West is mostly.
Yep. So anyway, I just like it's such an important point around just the getting outside and getting that natural light for that serotonin regulation, because ultimately in the absence of blue light at night, that's when the magic takes place, and that serotonin will then convert into melatonin.
Okay.
So another issue which we'll kind of get onto the night part, but if you block all the blue light at night and you think, oh, cool, well, I'm going to have good optimal melatonin.
Yep.
Well, it's actually not necessarily. If you didn't get good natural light exposure during the day, it doesn't matter. You don't have the raw material to make the melatonin. So it's kind of. So you really need to it's a twofold approach to what you do during the day and what you do at night.
Yep.
And so ultimately, where we get to night is the sun sets. And now, if we kind of look at nature, the sun sets, and we kind of like, if you kind of look at like evolution and stuff, we would have like had a fire, pretty much. And with fires, like your orange, your yellows, your reds, there's no blue light in it. So in nature, the only natural source of blue light is the sun. Yeah. So ultimately, that is how we've been biologically wired to understand if there's blue light in the environment, it's daytime. So continue to keep your cortisol and your adrenaline and wakefulness hormones elevated or high enough to keep you awake and alert. And then when the sun sets, the blue light has removed from the environment. The brain recognizes, okay, there's no blue light left. Let's let those levels drop down. Let's let the conversion of serotonin into melatonin take place. And ultimately, melatonin plus other hormones are going to then kind of start the process of winding you down for sleep. So what happens now, though, in our modern world, and it's happened since the advent of electricity, really. What is now, the sun sets, we're not ready for bed. We want to stay awake. We've got shit to do. Modern lifestyle, right? Just go.
I want to watch some Netflix. Don't want to.
Yeah. Or just, you don't want to go to bed. That's, so the lights come on in the home. And now, even if we just go back, sort of at the start of the advent of electricity, so you had the incandescent lighting, was the Edison bulb was the kind of the starting point of this, what I would call downward spiral of light at night being an issue. But it wasn't actually a bit too bad. Like, so if you look at the spectrum of incandescent light, it's very low in blue light. It's got
right.
It's not bad. It's still not what I wouldn't say optimal for night. It still has the ability to stop that process of what we talked about, it will keep your melatonin suppressed somewhat. But I guess they've looked at it in studies, and they've said, like, your suppression level at an estimate is kind of sitting around that 20% of a melatonin will be suppressed when you're exposed to incandescent lighting.
Okay.
But then what's happened, and so I guess there's always been low level suppression for the last, how long is it, 100 years or 80 years? How long have the light bulbs been around? But then I guess what's happened, if we kind of even just step back now, like 10 or 15 years, we're starting to shift away from that. We've started to bring in LED technology as kind of being the prominent lighting exposure. So that's not only the screens, like LED screens from computers and phones and TVs, but if we just even look at the shift in residential lighting in the last 5 or 6 years, it is now like primarily everywhere. Like, even just 5 or 6 years ago, there was incandescent still hovering around. It was there. Now it's just eradicated, and it's not only eradicated by like people choosing to; it's almost being forced on the population.
It's true.
Yeah. In the name of sustainability. Which
energy
is
saving.
Which they're like the kind of the push, the green push is like LED lighting is like the best thing for the planet Earth because it's low power consumption. So a typical 10 watts of power draw from an LED is the equivalent of 100 watts of power draw from an incandescent. So I'm like, oh cool, we're saving lots of like energy production to light your home. And then the other factor that they consider is the life of the bulb. So your average LED bulb should last 10 years versus an incandescent's probably about a year. So I like to say, awesome job. We've done this great thing for sustainability and to save the planet Earth and whatnot, but with a complete disregard for for saving the human race. It's like we just don't give a shit about our own health, but we give so much of a shit about the health of the planet. And I'm like, well, why aren't we thinking about both? So that's kind of the issue is huge in terms of now, because the incandescent versus LED kind of argument is like, you look at the spectrum coming off LED, it's just a huge spike in blue, and it doesn't have any of the reds, the oranges and the yellows, which are these wavelengths we've been kind of, from an evolutionary standpoint, wired to see at night from fire. So it's just like midday sun is there all the time. So it's like, I like to say, like, the phones and stuff are like artificial suns in your pockets. We carry them around with us all day. And the health impacts are just, crazy, like insomnia, sleeping problems. Like, if you look at the kind of the rise in prescription of off-label prescription for insomnia, is crazy. It's like an epidemic of health and the problems of insomnia. And then if you think about, like, insomnia is just the starting point of the health problems, because then eventually the body doesn't continue to repair and recover overnight. So an interesting point about melatonin, I really like this, is because people consider, and we've talked about melatonin being like a sleep hormone, right? It's released at night to help you sleep. And we've actually written a whole article about melatonin, and it's considered a sleep hormone because we we release a lot of it while we're sleeping. It's most concentrated in the brain and body while we're sleeping, and it actually does put you, it is a resting, kind of helps you put you in a state of rest. But when you actually look at what it's doing in the body, it's not a sleep hormone. It's like this master antioxidant hormone in the body. So when you're sleeping, what it's doing is like cleaning up all the shit from the damage you did to your body during the day, going after cancer cells. It's lowering all your inflammation. It's strengthening your immune system. So I think we read the thing. It's like the benefits beyond sleeping is like this massive list of things. So like if you think that you sleep amazing, like, and you're being exposed to blue light at night, and you're like, oh, sleeping's not a problem for me, your melatonin's going to be lowered because that's biologically what will happen. So ultimately, you're shortchanging your health regardless of your sleep status, because your melatonin is at a suboptimal level, and you really want, in terms of just optimal health, to have high melatonin. So it's an interesting one.
It's bloody interesting. It is, and I bet that you're that person who walks into a party or a room or wherever you're at, and you look at the light and comment and go, that light's bloody wrecking the space. And other people will be like, oh, what do you mean? Like, oh yeah, I guess it's a bit harsh, or something. They'll say something like that, like it's a bit harsh, or oh yeah, it's a bit cold. Or people, they know it deep down inside. Like, and I'll walk people through this process. I'll be like, okay, so look at that fluorescent bulb. Like, how does that make you feel? Like, oh, like kind of irritated, it's dirty, like I want to get away from it. It's like, yeah, like that's actually real. Like that's actually your nervous system being like, this is poison, like get it away from me. But yeah, we're so immersed in this environment, sun's in our pockets. People disconnect from their body, so they might say, oh, I sleep amazing, but you're missing out on how much more amazing you can sleep.
I love that one. I love that one that where people are like, I sleep amazing. But then you go, oh, how do you feel in the morning? And they're like, well, I feel like shit. I'm tired. I need at least 3 coffees to wake up. And I'm like, no, that's not normal. And they're like, no, but it has been normalized. That's the thing. Like it is normal, but it's not normal. That makes sense.
It's the new normal.
Yeah, there we go. That's another way
of looking at it. The new normal is well below average. Let's be honest.
Yeah, it's like you shouldn't need a stimulant to get you up in the morning. You shouldn't feel like you need like the first 3 hours of your day you're like trying to wake up. That's like not how we've been designed, but ultimately your environment is causing that on you. But then at the same time, people are so out of tune with their body that they're like, I sleep amazing or I sleep fine. And the thing is, they don't even realize that they're probably waking up 20 times a night, but they don't even consciously know it's happening.
Fair enough,
But yeah, just on the point of melatonin suppression, so how I said there's 20% from the incandescent. So it's been shown LED lighting is between 80 and 90% melatonin suppression. So that's how much the average person is suppressing their melatonin. Wow. And then they sit there and try and take melatonin supplementation. Yeah. And it's like in context, sometimes supplementation is fine. I don't think there's any illicit danger from it versus say a prescription sleeping pill, but you're overriding again like this process in the body and going, well, so melatonin should only ever be high when cortisol and adrenaline are low. But what you're doing is you're leaving your cortisol and adrenaline elevated through the exposure to blue light, and then you're kind of coming over the top and shoving melatonin into the mix as well. Totally. And so it's a completely unnatural state for the body. There's time and place to use the supplementation, like particularly when you're going through like you're traveling through time zones and you need to actually try and get the body back into regulation. Yeah. And there are times like short bursts of high stress, because high stress keeps your cortisol elevated, and you can actually use it to try and help with a high stress situation. But it shouldn't be something we're relying on. And which a lot of people are. They're like, oh, well, I don't take sleeping pills, so I take the natural kind of approach with melatonin. I'm like, well, the even more natural approach is like let your body create it naturally itself how it should.
Totally. Yeah, I think Paul Check would call that one putting golden nails in a rotting ship.
Yeah, that's it.
Spending heaps of money on supplements when you can get melatonin for free. Just look at the look at
Yeah,
the sun the right time of day.
yeah.
Yeah. Um, so when it comes to children, and families, because that's what Rocks podcast is really about, is
Mm.
elucidating health topics and education, awareness. What can we do for our families, which then impact our children, which then impact future generations, so that we can start to build a better world? And quite honestly, the threat of the modern world to our children is never been higher, because of the lack of awareness around this stuff. And now we're seeing the major push for digital technologies being used in everything from early learning all the way through learning on iPads, classrooms full of fluorescent tubes. There's just zero awareness of this stuff, and it has a huge impact on learning, memory. Can you share some stories about maybe the impacts that you've seen in the lives of children's, maybe that they're children of clients or customers, and some stories, or just anything to do with how blue light's impacting children, and then how we might integrate some of the mitigating factors for families?
Yeah. So over the years, we've certainly seen some patterns in terms of how this is impacting children, and certainly like the effects of when things are kind of brought back into balance, and then up in realizations. So a big one that we see commonly is behavior and mood of children.
Okay.
It's been shown like these kind of like dysregulations, children are more sensitive to them. Yeah, things like your mood disorders and just those sort of things. We have a lot of people that say once kind of, oh, we've made these changes and holy shit, like my child is actually not so like bouncing off the walls at night and is starting to calm down a lot. We have had some teachers start to introduce the lighting in their classroom.
Great.
And just talked about just how much calmer the classroom is versus just so I think there's definitely a link between the two. And we have written a bit about just in general about like how blue light is impacting child's development as well, just around their sleep. And like one of the key things that is known is, so the child's eye hasn't fully developed until I think it's about 12 years old, or might be a bit older, like 12 or 13 or something. So prior to that, they're more sensitive to blue light wavelengths from them essentially penetrating into the retina and causing damage to the eyes.
Right, gotcha.
So what we try to say is actually more important to protect your child's eyes than your own. But interestingly, we don't really, like from a business point of view, we see the least uptake in terms of these sort of products onto child. So our children's glasses are probably the lowest selling products we have on our store. And I guess I think we sat down the other day and we were sort of trying to hypothesize this one, why we don't sell a lot of them. Because I initially, before we did sell them, I was like, oh, this is going to be awesome. We're going to sell like pump dares to get out these child's glasses. And I was like, well, every parent of every customer of ours that has a child will be buying these. Like they've bought into it. But
totally.
I guess it wasn't. And I think it's because I guess it'd be quite hard to get compliance with kids and getting them to wear them.
I think you're right. That hypothesis is pretty close to the truth, and it's that a lot of families, they're caught up in the momentum of building a family, and it's usually only once their child's like 8 or something, 9, they actually get the time again to start to look outside of the family again, and then the parent might find, oh, okay, yeah, blue blockers, that's the thing to do. But by then their child's sort of socially influenced and influenced by culture, and everything. So to try and, influence family culture for the parents at that stage is often a challenge, especially if it's not something the parents have been doing themselves, like being role models for it for a longer time.
Yeah.
The kids are going to go, well, I'm starting to rebel a little bit now, at least, and I don't want to wear these dorky glasses or whatever. But if they start out and the family's like a role model the whole time, then they'll pick it up.
Probably a different story. And I think the other issue as well is not, from I don't have kids myself, so I'm probably not the best person to comment on this. But this again, this is what I see from just seeing it as parents, kind of, and it is an easy way of entertainment. It's like chuck a tablet to the kid to because they can't spend time with them, or they just need them to be preoccupied with something else. So you just see the tablet getting shoved in front of them, YouTube. And again, you look at the biological impacts of dopamine, and it's like a dopamine hit for the children. So they get addicted to these screens, and it's like this vicious cycle sort of thing, where that then ultimately causes behavioral issues, which then ultimately makes the parent more stressed out throwing the tablet at them again, sort of thing. And it's ingrained in them from such an early age now. I think when I was a kid, that it's the generation after us. Each generation, it's been coming younger and younger to literally they can't even walk, but they can't walk or talk, but they know how to turn on. They know how to start the YouTube app on a tablet. It's crazy.
It is wild.
/ a little bit scary.
Very, very scary. Yeah. 100% agree.
So that's that. Yeah, I think just the normalization of these devices as well, for the from such a young age is again, like you said, say a child, for the first 5 to 10 years of their life have not had these glasses on, and then the parent suddenly works all this out and goes, I want you to wear. I don't think you're going to get much buy-in.
No.
But I guess where we do see what we are seeing though is a lot of uptake in the people or parents fitting up complete lighting in their homes. Right, the kid doesn't really have an option there. It's everyone benefits from that environment. So
totally. And there is software out there. Yeah, I use Flux. There's also another one called Iris Tech.
Yeah, Iris Tech is the one that we recommend.
You recommend that one? Okay.
Yeah, it's very similar to Flux. Flux is free. Iris Tech is $5 or $10. It's just a little bit. It's the design of Iris Tech is taking flicker into account.
Okay.
So you can lower the brightness of the screen and not increase the flicker, which is cool. quite important. So that's why we just normally recommend people that way. But either of those softwares are good.
I'll have to check out Iris Tech and switch over.
The only issue with those software is obviously they're only applicable to generally a PC.
You can't get them on an iPad or.
Apple is a lockdown. They don't it's not an approved app for them.
Is there any approved apps for Apple that do the blue light thing?
So the best way to do Apple is night shift. So night shift mode is good for the daytime. So that's on. So that should be on 24/7.
All time, right.
Yeah, and then there's a hack you can make so your phone turns red. So that's what I generally do at nighttime. If you just Google how to turn your iPhone screen red, you'll find a blog on that, and
great.
That's what you do for nighttime, really. But then the problem is the TV is a big one. The tech isn't. That's where I think TV manufacturers have got a little bit to improve on. There's nothing really available for that in terms of
I have seen panels that you can fit to the screen that are different sized plastics.
It seems like a lot of admin to me. We get asked will we sell those sort of things, and I'm like, God no, because the amount of people that would just there's so much room for error and trying to apply it to the TV.
Exactly.
I just say wear the glasses that we create. We know what wavelengths they block. We know they work. I don't have any faith in those kind of protective
And this is
things.
my advice for families is create a culture. Parents lead by example. Children like to follow the elders of their life, whether they like it or not. And we're all influenced by each other, but it's the adults of this world that influence children. So the more adults are out there, out and about, using the glasses, making sense of this stuff, utilising these products and these technologies that can mitigate the harm, the more our younger generations are just going to follow suit because it makes sense. And they'll also experience the benefits too. So it'll start to make sense to them. So it's really about creating a culture so that you can, give it back to the younger generations. And maybe you won't enforce it on them and go, you have to wear this, but it's more like just lead by example and demonstrate that, you're like you, Daniel, you're an entrepreneur. You've created a whole business. You're into powerlifting. You've probably got cool hobbies and interests. You're a cool guy. Kids are going to be inspired by that. They're going to want to know, like, what's this guy up to? Why is he wearing the funny glasses?
I think another point is like, certainly, like, don't enforce it on kids, but like ultimately, if that culture has been there from the get-go, and then they'll be very in tune with how they feel when they wear them and when they don't. So it's almost like you'd let them go, like, or just make them aware of that's why they didn't sleep well last night, because they were on the tablet, and that's why they feel tired and want to have, and not motivated today to do all these things. So just bringing the awareness to, hey, you did this, and this is probably why you feel like this, sort of thing.
Yeah, totally. And even a reward thing sometimes, like, if you wear the glasses, you can play the Xbox.
Yeah.
So, we're wrapping up. We've come to an hour now, so I won't keep you too much longer. But if I ask everyone on this podcast this question, which is, if you had a wish for the future generations of the planet, what would that wish be?
Pretty simple one. And I'll stick on topic. It would be like, just be aware of the environment we live in.
Yeah.
And try to align ourselves to how we were designed to. Yeah.
Amazing. Yeah, it's true. I think we've got a lot of work to do in that department, but there's a lot of awesome, benefit that can come from there. So it's exciting times. I think, if I ever get you on a day, I'd like to jump more into stuff around lifestyle and, what's a day look like in the life of Daniel, and, what are some further hacks, and we'd even go into infrared and, that sort of stuff. But yeah, we've run out of time today. So I'm really grateful to have you along, Daniel. And I also just want to let our listeners know that we have affiliated with blockbluelight.com.au and Daniel, and we have a code for the shop. Life Rocks is the code. I'm pretty sure it's in capitals. Is it all the codes are in capitals?
So yeah.
So just if you head over to Daniel's shop and use the code Life Rocks, you'll get a discount there. And I look forward to having more conversations in the future about different things. Thanks for coming, Daniel.
No worries. Yeah. Thanks for having me.
And did you want to share anything else about anything new that's coming, or?
We've always got new stuff coming. We're always developing new products. We're trying to innovate a lot in the lighting space. We've got a wealth of knowledge on the website, trying to explain things, break things down in terms of. But yeah, if anyone gets stuck, doesn't know what they want, reach out to us. We're pretty good. We're pretty helpful in terms of support and trying to help people out and understand exactly what they need, and try to get them the kind of the best things that are going to suit their situation.
Yeah, amazing. No, it's very true. All right, Daniel. Well, enjoy the rest of your day.
Cool. Thanks a lot.
Yeah, and we'll talk again soon.
Cheers.
And remember, everybody, life rocks.
Thank you so much for listening to the Life Rocks podcast. If you enjoyed the show, then leave us a review. We'll be back soon with more inspiring content, and in the meantime, remember, life rocks.